Atwood, and I am the one behind the Core and Pelvic Floor Health During Pregnancy series. And in this video, I'm going to show you guys how to properly activate your core and your pelvic floor. If you haven't read all of the information that I talked about above, go back and read that before you watch this video. And I suggest watching this video one time through, just listening, and then going through a second time and actually doing what I'm teaching along with the video so you get the most out of it. So I have my friend Haley here. She's one of my really good friends, and she did my core care seminar as well, so she's going to help me demonstrate this. So we're just going to go over first core activation. So it's really important to know how to properly activate the core, because if you're improperly activating the core, you're not training it functionally, and it can also cause more issues, as such as causing more intra-abdominal pressure. Especially during pregnancy, it's very important to learn how to engage your transverse. And so we're going to go over that. So I'm going to have Haley, and then I want you guys to be doing this as well along with me the second time through. So Haley is going to focus. I really want her during these exercises to focus on how her core is feeling. And I want you guys to really be focusing on what's happening in the core and what you're feeling. So Haley is just going to engage her core as she would if she was doing a sit-up or a crunch movement or some type of jackknife movement. So I'm going to have Haley engage her core. And she's focusing on what it feels like. Yeah, with the hands. You can do whatever you want with it. Okay. So what does it feel like when you are engaging your core when you're doing a sit-up? Where do you feel the work at?
Down here.
Perfect. Okay, so that is the one example. Now we're going to go into a different example. I want to imagine that, and of course I hope this would never happen, especially while you're pregnant, but you're imagining that someone is, either they threw a ball and is about to hit you in the tummy because they were really bad aim, or someone's about to accidentally hit you and you're kind of prepping to prepare yourself to protect. So what do you do when you're someone's about to hit your core?
Tighten it.
She said that she tightens it. Do the two feel the same? A little bit.
A little bit, yeah.
A little bit, so you really feel it mainly right here.
Yeah, kind of like mid-stomach.
So she said she really feels it mid-stomach. And what do you guys feel? So I want you to focus on, what do you feel when you're about to crunch up, and what do you feel when you're about to protect your core if like a ball was coming at you? A lot of times they feel similar, especially if you don't know how to engage the transverse. So if they're feeling similar, then what you're doing is called bracing. And when you brace the core, it's a very tense movement, it's a very fast movement, almost like a jarring sensation, and it feels very, very tight right here, and that's the rectus abdominis. So we learned the transverse versus the rectus. And a lot of times when we engage our core, especially during like sit-up or crunch movements, it's a very superficial engagement, and it's the rectus muscles that we're activating. And so that really tight sensation that we do, especially like, so if you think about it, when we do sit-ups, we hold our breath, we tense our tummy, and we bust them out. Or we're doing mountain climbers or whatever we're doing, we're really tensing that stomach and really putting a lot of pressure. And that is very superficial, it's not very functional, and you're not activating the transverse, which is what we really need to support and to strengthen the core properly. So if you are a bracer, then really focus as I teach how to engage the transverse next. So our transverse is so vital for during exercise and even just daily living activities, such as picking up your baby or vacuuming, bending down and picking something up. You need the transverse to be reflexive. You want it to work on its own and to kick in when you need it and to relax when you don't. So I'm going to teach you how do you even feel your transverse. So I'm going to have Haley flip onto her hands and knees. And then you guys at home also flip onto your hands and knees. This is a great exercise to just find your transverse. But really fast, I want you to relax through right here. So kind of like, perfect. So this is what I don't want you to do. Whenever you're on your hands and knees, never collapse through. You want to be up and supported right in there. So Haley's going to imagine, and you guys are going to imagine you have a birthday cake right here. This is the example that's often used. And there's a bunch of candles. So you're going to inhale, and then exhale slowly, and imagine you're blowing out the candles, focusing on what is happening in the core. So Haley's going to exhale all of her breath, and when she's done, she's going to tell us what she feels.
Okay, it feels like your stomach is being sucked in.
So she's talking about here,
like kind of in and up.
In and up is what she's saying. And that's often, I call it, it's retracting almost. So, okay, flip back onto your back now. And you guys can lay back on your backs too. So that is a great way to feel the reflexive nature of the transverse when you're exhaling and it's subtly drawing in. She said up and inwards. That's the transverse kicking in and working. And that is really the sensation you should feel when you're working your core. And so we're going to do the same thing, but this time on our backs. And I want you guys to recruit as many senses as you can. So putting a hand on the tummy. So I'm going to have Haley put a hand on her tummy. If you have a mirror at home, you can prop up and actually look at what your core is doing. The more we're connected to our core, the more efficiently we can work it. So Haley's going to imagine, again, there's a birthday cake. She's blowing out candles. She's going to inhale, let her tummy fill, and then exhale, and feeling what happens here. And I'm sure you guys can't see it as well, but I can see it here. And then just take another breath in. When Haley is inhaling, and then when she exhales, her core is doing that same compressing motion, but this time it's compressing down. So I like to liken it to a bouncy house. You have a bouncy house that's filled up, and when you're exhaling, it's slowly deflating. And that's what the abdomen really should be doing when you're working the transverse. And compared to that bracing feeling, when you brace, it's that very tense feeling, and you don't feel that subtle contraction and engagement of the core. And that is what the transverse feels like when you're actually efficiently engaging it. So a great thing to do is to do, I like to call them breath activation. So just staying here, laying down and breathing. So another important thing with core is working with your breath. Instead of holding your breath and then doing whatever exercise you're going to be doing, we want to work with our breath. I like to liken it EE. You exhale as you're engaging your core. So with the breath examples, you inhale, let your belly fill, and then you exhale, and that's when the engagement happens. So never hold your breath. Functional movement moves with our breath. So even just laying on your back and aiming for 10 breaths every day will help you become more connected to your transverse. So that is core. Now we're going to go over really fast pelvic floor. And again, this video is only to teach you how to activate. In a later video, I'm going to be showing you some exercises that you can do. This is just how to find your core and pelvic floor muscles and how to properly activate them. So the pelvic floor is a little bit more mysterious. It's harder to teach and to show. And oftentimes, of course, the exercise that we think of when we think of strengthening the pelvic floor is a Kegel. And there's nothing wrong with the Kegel, but the problem that comes with the Kegel is it's a very one-dimensional, a very isolated movement that a lot of us do over and over and over again. And what a lot of women find, and what a lot of professionals are finding as well, when you do just a lot of Kegels, it's actually creating an over-tight pelvic floor and not necessarily a strong pelvic floor. When you functionally train the pelvic floor, it's really working with the core. And I'll kind of show you more compound movements again when we go over actual exercises. And so it's likening it to the Kegel movement, but slower and more functional. So you're going to imagine that there is, I like the string example, where there's a string tied around the top of your pelvic floor. And this movement really should come from deep within. And so when Haley's doing this, her hips shouldn't be moving. She shouldn't be feeling it in her back at all. The pelvic floor contraction should come from deep within. And so you're having a string right here. You're going to inhale the same way, exhale, and that's when you draw up the pelvic floor. You imagine somebody's pulling up on that string, and you should feel a gentle lift coming from deep within, right in that pelvic floor. And so how a lot of women find their pelvic floor muscles is, the example is like starting and stopping a urine flow, and that is, I never suggest that because that actually causes issues, so never do that. But if you're having a hard time feeling that string drawing up sensation, imagining that you're about to go into the bathroom or you're stopping the flow, and feel those muscles. Those are your pelvic floor muscles. But then transition it away from that example and more into the string example. You're inhaling, relaxing, and then exhaling and drawing up. And your pelvic floor really has a much fuller range of motion than a Kegel allows for. And so you're feeling how far can you lift your pelvic floor. And then you're letting your pelvic floor relax all the way down and feeling how it actually can go even deeper than the level you maintain normally. And sometimes that's referred to as like the basement level, but really feeling this range of motion that your pelvic floor has. And that is how you find your pelvic floor. Thank you for joining me for this video, and hang tight for the videos where I show you more compound exercises to do, as well as alignment video that will be coming up in a later segment. Thank you.